And we are here live on Studio A! Yeah, you've waited all week for the most cutting-edge topics and guests, and now it is time to deliver. That's right, it's the Stephen D. Kelly Show! With your host, Stephen D. Kelly!
Okay, good evening, everybody. Matt made it. We're a little scrambled there. Sean just was running a little bit late, and I was all ready to push the button and try to produce the show myself. But he made it here. Thank you very much, Sean. I'm glad you're here, so we can be able to take calls and everything. All you other producers, Jer Bear, everybody that was calling to help me out, it's okay. We're good to go. Anyway, okay, everybody, welcome to the show, Stephen D. Kelly Show. I'm your host, Stephen D. Kelly. Big show planned tonight, and I've only done this twice. This is the second time where I've done a show where it was just me, and from the numbers, it looks like this is not such a bad thing because quite a few people have expressed interest in the program, and it's logical, of course, because It is a big subject, and I chose this because I came to a feeling that it was necessary to get it out there, this information, because it's time, and it is. I say this lightly, but it is nothing less than probably the greatest secret in the world that we are going to be discussing tonight. And the other thing that's nice about me doing this myself is that I don't have to deal with. I can spew the information, and I don't have to deal with counterpoint and trying to prove it, and everybody trying to get in their 2 cents. So, one thing I want to say real quick is, if you are listening on a computer or phone or whatever, and you have the ability, please take notes. And I recommend you do that right now, because I'm going to start giving you information that you do need to follow up on yourself. And obviously, Google everything. So, if you really can do that, that's very important. And the first notes that I want you to take, of course, are studio business. I want to tell people to go to our Facebook page. I want to also remind people that we have a new YouTube station that we need you to subscribe to, and I'll try to get that information out to you. I don't have it in front of my face right now, but that's another good reason to join our Facebook page, because you'll see it right there, this information. And of course, this information is also available on our website, www.freedomslips.com, and obviously that's the same name on the Facebook page. So go there, like the Facebook page, get that feed. Let's see, what else? We are listener-supported radio. We do depend on your donations, and obviously it's very important, and you people have been coming through, and we're very thankful for the support that we do get. We're, 19 days left in this month, and it's hard for me to look at the data, but near as I can tell, we're doing pretty good. And there's also lots of great deals, of course, that Hawk has available. You can get the seed pack and things like that, and it's a great way to spend your money and help the station, help us. Lots of other stuff. But anyway, like I said, there's a lot of information I want to cover, so I want to get this over with. And because the other thing is that I would like to, obviously the station puts out a video of every program that we do that goes out on YouTube. But I'm probably, for this one, I'm going to do one myself, because I'd like to add a bunch of graphics. For just about everything that's say, I'd like to add a graphic. And there are going to be some portions where I'll be talking about physics-related stuff and things that are best explained visually. But of course, if you listen to my programs, we talk about toroids and energy and toruses and this kind of vortexes and all these shapes in their relationship to energy and physics in general. And it's important, these things will come up tonight because the topic of the show tonight is Hollow Earth, Nazi bases, and Operation High Jump. Hope you like that title, but that's the big secret, the Hollow Earth, okay? That's the big thing, and sounds incredible. And that's all fine and good. You can say whatever, but we're just going to cover this information. And again, when presented with crazy stuff, you need to become an observer and open your mind and file away the information and don't judge it and don't use your emotions. And the main thing you got to do is forget what you learned in school. Okay? Just assume that everything you've been taught is a lie. Anyway. All right. And I'll tell you something else. Years ago, I don't know what it was, 4 or 5 years ago maybe, I did a lecture. And this was back when I was doing that sort of thing. I was in a metaphysics group, and there was, so many hundred members, and we would do these lectures, not always me, some other people, but I was doing one on, basically it was the Nazi occult and flying saucers, and it was Victor Schauberger. Actually, it was all about Victor Schauberger, okay? And we're going to be talking a lot about Victor Schauberger. And Victor Schauberger is one of the big three. When people say, "Gee, what should I do? How am I going to, learn about all this stuff?" It's first thing is very simple. You start out with Nikola Tesla. You learn about Tesla. Tesla will introduce you to all sorts of incredible concepts, mainly the moving of electricity, the moving of ions, and the toroidal movement. A Tesla coil, you look at a Tesla coil, that should introduce you right there to the whole concept of a vortex. There's a reason why it looks like a funnel. We'll get into that. The other guy is Wilhelm Reich, who is another German, of course, transplanted to the United States, very important. And a lot of people, when they talk about Wilhelm Reich, they associate him with orgone and cloudbusters and the concept of orgone devices. But there's a lot more to the man, obviously. Yeah, but he was ridiculed and tossed into jail, and they burned all his books, and, typical. But he's really big. But the third guy that's really important is Victor Schauberger. And, of course, he was a Austrian naturalist. I didn't want to start out talking about him, but I won't get this over. But he was a Nazi. He was, I guess, he by studying the motion of water, fluid of water going through creek beds in his, sitting in the forest doing what he was doing, he gathered a very, keen appreciation for fluid dynamics, and was able to apply this to the movement of energy and how all of this is a perfect example of the mechanics of the universe, so to speak. And because of this, he was able to develop incredible technology based on these toroidal whirlpool type effects that he observed in water. And he created engines which would power UFOs. He created implosion engines which ran on air and water, which could develop heat, light, energy, movement, mechanical movement, the whole 9 yards. And that was the basis of these German UFOs, which we're going to be talking a lot about tonight. Very important technology. That was the drive system for a lot of these UFOs. But the other thing is that he also, all three of these guys, Tesla, Reich, and Schauberger, taught us a lot about these movements of ions and energies. And what's important to understand is that these energies and these movements and these patterns that are made during the movement of this energy are basically used everywhere that you can imagine. They represent the aura of our body. They represent the energy put out by a single cell or a single atom or a molecule or a planet for that matter, or a moon or a sun or a star or any ball of plasma for that matter, or the galaxy. The entire galaxy emits these patterns. So this is a constant. And the idea, the reason why the idea of the constant is important is because of that famous saying, "As above, as is below." And when you deal with guys like Nassim Haramein, who are very important, scientists, physics thinkers, that you'll see their theories correspond very much to what we'll be talking about, and I'll bring that up later. But let's start with 1947. Admiral Byrd. or 1946. There was a operation, and basically it was put together by Admiral Byrd, of course, was a famous polar explorer. And this operation was of military nature, and he said so, but prior to leaving, he got up in front of everybody and said it was of military nature. And it was called Operation High Jump. Okay. Now, if you go back in the archives, you try to find any kind of a movie or anything, and I saw one just recently, a black and white film that was made by the United States for this Operation High Jump. They made the thing look like it was a Jacques Cousteau mission, basically to go to Antarctica and play with the penguins and set up little weather bases and do a little exploration. You know, there's all sorts of footage of soldiers playing with penguins and things like this. But the Russians also made a film, and if you're interested, and I think you should look at it, this film is actually dealing with Antarctica and Nazi bases in Antarctica. And I'm not going to say that they got it right in everything in this film, because remember, every source of information that we present is just one source, and you have to bring it all together. Even what I say tonight is going to be, it may seem a little incoherent at times, and I may even ramble, but the point is that it's an extremely complex subject. But if you can connect the dots, and the more of these little pieces of the puzzle that you collect, the easier it's going to see the interconnectedness of all of these realities. And this is why it's so important for me to talk about this hollow earth concept and this Nazi connection and all that, because how it affects the current events that are going on, Fukushima, Ukraine, yada yada, Syria, et cetera, et cetera. If you have this information and it allows you to put everything else into context, and you can see a little bit clearer who's really in charge and who's really pulling the strings and who all the real players really are. So, going back to Operation High Jump. Basically, Operation High Jump was an aircraft carrier, 12 surface ships, 1 sub, about 20 airplanes, and 5,000 men. All right. As well as probably some scientists and what have you. But mostly it was a military operation. Full guns, everything. Okay. And they're selling to Antarctica. So this looked like, obviously Byrd said it was a military thing, but he went down there. And, you go down there with all that hardware, it wasn't military. I mean, it wasn't civilian. It wasn't just for exploration. And this was basically Queen's Maud's land. Well, it was intended to be a 6-month expedition, and its purpose was for wiping out this German base that was allegedly set up down there. And the reason why the Americans were so upset and so certain that there was this secret German base down there had a lot to do with everything that was missing from Germany, whole factories, high-tech factories, lots of key scientists, key personnel, skilled workers were just not there. Lots of assets weren't there. What was left there was destroyed for the most part. We captured all sorts of hardware, but all the really crazy technology had been shipped out before the bombs started falling up there. And there was a bunch of submarines that were special Führer transport submarines that turned up in Argentina, and the crew, of course, wouldn't talk. They wouldn't say anything about where they had been. There was a skeleton crew, so whatever was on board was gone. These guys just turned themselves in, after they dropped off whatever they dropped off. And so finally, the Americans were sure that the Nazis had set up something over there in Antarctica. All right. Well, if you go back a few years earlier, Admiral Byrd actually had worked hand in hand with the Nazis in their exploration of what we call Queen Maud's land, and this was back. A little before 1939. It was before the war, but this had been going on, much sooner than that. But the Germans had went and basically set out I don't think it was 600,000 acres of land, or square kilometers, something like that, of land that they had staked out. They claimed for England, or claimed for Deutschland. and they called it New Swabia or New Schwabenland. And it's funny, that sort of thing is not, we don't talk about it. I mean, it's like a big secret. When you go on Google Maps, you're not going to see anything down there. It's just going to be white, right? I mean, there is stuff there, but, how convenient that these Arctic, especially Antarctica, is like wiped off of the map. If next time you get a map, take a look at it. But anyway, so the Germans had established these bases down there, and they had shipped all kinds of hardware and people and everything else. But we'll talk more about those bases, but we'll get back to the war. The 2 months into the mission, when these guys are filming themselves playing with the penguins and stuff like that, they were attacked by craft that basically came straight out of the water. They were disc-shaped, and they just, flew right through the mass of these things and freaked the heck out of everybody, and took out a destroyer. Sunk a destroyer using some sort of a beam weapon. And the other thing, there was also jets that were, like conventional. Well, back then, of course, the German, the jet program, I'm sure, never really got off the ground as far as we know. But by this year, who knows? They could have developed some product that was very new at the time. But they were involved, so there was some advanced German jet fighters plus these craft that flew out of the water. And took out, and then jumped back into the water, of course. Okay, and these, of course, now if you watch this Russian film, you'll see the film of these craft, and the craft look exactly like some of the German craft that we're going to talk about that we know were being built in Germany prior to the end of the war. Well, if you go to my okay, this is one of those things I want you to write down. My webpage, that's another thing. I want you guys to try to go to my Facebook page if you can. Friend me, if those of you have not friended me, and I'll have a link for that movie. And of course, if you contact me, or if I'll try to put that movie out, you can find it. But it's basically a Russian movie. It has American subtitles, and it's it's pretty incredible. But they don't. They don't talk about the Hollow Earth and all that, but they do get pretty heavy into the mythology involved, and some of a lot of people, when they talk about the Nazis, they talk about the satanic connections and the connections to Tibet, and the search for the Holy Grail and the Spear of Destiny and all of that. And certainly this plays a role in this. Because when you get down to it, as crazy as all the mythology seems, and not just German mythology, obviously the Germans, Aryans, they had some crazy ideas about there being a Aryan super race that was responsible for basically being the ancestors of everybody here on the earth today. In a way, there is something to that, because an Aryan is a prototype human. A Aryan is basically just like the beginning human prototype prior to the addition of all the extra upgrades, if you will, which represent the different species. So there's, so the Aryans have got it half right. Yes, they are special in a way, but that just means they haven't got all the upgrades. It's like a computer without all the upgrades. So no harm to all my Aryan friends out there. But that goes to this inner Earth thing. Okay, they thought that they had connections to Atlantis. Okay, they were looking for connections to Atlantis. And there was they called it the Anerbe. It's so hard for me to pronounce this. I tried to get the pronunciation properly, but it sounds like the Anerbe Society. And that was started by Himmler. And basically what they were was like, their purpose was to go and do all this research and to hunt down all these artifacts, travel all over the world, and find the ancient artifacts and ancient documents that would give them this knowledge, that would give them a superiority in warfare, as well as basically prove their beliefs that the Aryans were the forefathers of all the modern humans, et cetera, et cetera. Well, some of the stuff that they were doing was very accurate, and clearly they learned great things, and they did pick up some incredible things. And there's certain things in particular that will relate to Antarctica that I'm going to try to not to forget to mention. But as far as things like the Holy Grail, okay, they had this belief that the Holy Grail was a cup that was used by Jesus at the Last Supper. But that's not what the Holy Grail is. That's a fallacy. Now, the Spear of Destiny, which was an important artifact that they did get a hold of, that was the actual spear that was used to pierce the side of Christ. I mean, that does exist, So that's an important artifact. The USA apparently has that now. Whoever has that thing is supposed to become the rule of the world, so to speak, be in control. So I guess Hitler had it for a while. Now we have it, but they want the so-called Holy Grail. They thought that was going to make them invincible, and of course the Holy Grail doesn't really exist. The Holy Grail is royal blood. That's what that means. Let's see. Their sub-commander was a guy named Dornetz, right? Dornetz, I believe. And he made a few references to this in public, and he said that they had discovered a paradise. Okay. And they started sending regular cargo ships down to Antarctica. The Germans did. They had an Antarctic route, and they had this going on since 1939 at least. Going through and up until the very end of the war, naturally. And these were big ships, and they were bringing everything down there. But they were also bringing giant tunnel boring machines and all sorts of skilled workers and scientists and engineers and trucks and railroads. So clearly they were building massive underground structures. But in 1942, when things started turning, I suppose, it seems a little bit early, but that's when they began the transfer of the technology and all the industrial stuff down there. So, and it goes beyond that. At one time, they started shipping people. Now, people should know, if they don't know, that one of the things the Nazis did was they were very into these breeding programs where they would have these SS officers breeding with these so-called, Aryan women. And, when it comes to Aryan women, it wasn't just Germans per se. And it's interesting that Ukraine is in the picture, big in the picture today, because a lot of blonde women from the Ukraine were shipped off to Antarctica. And this is all very interesting because of what they were really doing. Now, we hear a lot about these UFOs landing and these blonde people getting out, tall blondes, basically, these statuesque examples of humans. They, of course, are always blonde, blue-eyed. Well, hello, that's what they were doing. They were setting up all these, they were creating a new country. Well, people think this is just a base in Antarctica. They think, okay, they found a lot of things. They found areas that were warm, that didn't have snow on the ground, that were not freezing, and this was due to heated pools and things like that. And there's a reason for this too. Okay, now I was talking about the guys running around and finding the ancient artifacts. Well, one of the things they found was a map by this Turkish navigator. And he was a 16th century Turkish navigator. And let me see, what was his name? Piri, I believe. Oh, gosh. Anyway, but this guy, this navigator, basically, he made this map, and in this map he had Antarctica showing with no ice. And the thing is, though, is that they said, where did this come from? And, obviously in 1600, the guy said that, his records showed that he basically collected information that was like 300 years before him to get these, to put this map together. But anyway, the map was actually more accurate than what we have today. And it wasn't until they had the sonar devices or the penetrating radar, ground penetrating radar, that they could actually identify, going through the thick ice, where the landmass truly was. And this is very significant because this ancient map was accurate, and it showed islands that these people had no idea were actually they were actually islands, as opposed to they thought it was just one big landmass. And it wasn't until they had this Piri Reis. Thank you, Sean. Piri Reis. Oh my God. This is what we have producers for. I got to be looking at the screen though to see that. If you want to write that down, people, his name's Piri, last name Reis, Piri Reis, and his map is from 1531. Anyway, so basically the Germans had access to this map, and one of the things, in fact, if you do pay attention to news, you'll notice that just recently the USA has released a revised map of Antarctica, which basically shows it without the ice and shows two channels essentially bisecting the entire continent. And this is very important because these channels are what these sub-people were looking for, this Nornetz character, and what have you. They were able, so these sub-bases basically went under, they would enter these things from underwater. They found huge lakes and they found huge air pockets. And, even the Russians have been doing ice drilling through the ice, and they're basically affirming this. And we've also, how many of us have heard these stories about the holes in the ice? I know a lot of people know there's a hole in the ice up at the North Pole, and there's a hole in the ice up at the South Pole. And these things, where the heck do they go? Well, a lot of people think these are the entrances to the middle of the Earth and all that. And in a way, you could say that they are, but what they really are is entrances to these caverns. Now, there are German maps, and there's a lot of German documents that show these caverns, and these were essentially used by the submarines to navigate through here. And basically, a submarine could enter from the northern top of, well, I guess it's not the northern because of when you consider where it is, but they could enter from one side, Queen's Maud's Land roughly, and come out completely opposite, 180 degrees, over on the other side of the continent. And they had pathways to do this. But in the very center of this passage, there was actually a hole that went down through into the earth. And apparently this only goes something like 200 miles, and you come out on the other side, which is the inner ocean on the inner earth. And that right there in itself is the most incredible thought that anybody can comprehend. And it's so easy for people to think, okay, that's ridiculous for this reason and that reason and this reason. So one of the things we're going to do tonight is we're going to discuss, we're not going to get into the politics or the history. I mean, these are all things that you have to consider. But we're going to discuss some of the physical aspects of an inner Earth world and how it's realistic and how it corresponds to the physics that we know of, as shown to us by people like Nassim Haramein, and what we know from physics just through study of metaphysics and quantum physics. So, anyway, now we know there's a northern entrance too, and there's a lot of Scandinavian and Nordic tales and stories about fishermen getting lost in the Arctic and running across people who have basically surfaced from the center and come up and help these people, rescued them. And, a lot of times they talk about these very large giants, these very tall people. Of course, they're always blonde and this and that. And we know that we talk about Atlantis, and I talk a lot about epochs. All right, and this is kind of one of the first things that you have to consider when you consider an inner Earth. All right, physics aside, we'll get into the physics soon enough, but one of the important things to consider about an inner Earth is that because it's protected by the outer layer of the land, of course, the crust, the shell, it's not being exposed to the radiation coming from the sun or other sources of radiation, such as source or source. Well, I mean, the sun, of course, obviously is our closest source of harmful radiation and what have you, but radiation can come from other sources. And that's not to say that the sun doesn't serve an important purpose for delivering scalar information. As I have talked and hypothesized in earlier shows, I believe that all sources of plasma, all suns, all mass, all bodies are able to transmit scalar information, because I think that's the nature of scalar, is because it's instantaneous and it does travel at the speed of light, which means it's everywhere at once. And when people talk about wormholes, this is what they're really talking about. They're talking about the correlation between the scalar information and these bodies of mass, specifically relating to suns and balls of plasma. And this is important when thinking about the hollow Earth, because in the center of our Earth, there isn't a ball of molten nickel like they try to tell us. What's really in the center of our Earth is a ball of plasma, very much like a miniature sun. Now, if we look at the physics behind this, some of the things we know, and of course I've got to reference Nassim Haramein, and if you get the opportunity to study everything that he says, you'll see when he talks about this in relation to black holes and planets and suns, and he says that these all do the same thing. A black hole is a great way to define it, because black holes are very violent, and it's easy to actually visualize what's going on, the phenomena that I'm trying to describe here. So in order to describe where the plasma ball in the center of the Earth comes from, I'll describe what a black hole does. Okay, the first thing they do is they have this magnetic energy all around them, which forms that torus, that donut that we talk about, okay? Just like the humans do. Everything does. Our heart does. Our brain does. Molecules do it. And it's basically the way the energy travels. And it's like a spiral. It's like a if you will, a whirlpool or a tornado, and top to the bottom. If you look at one whirlpool on the top and one whirlpool on the bottom, meeting at the center is where that ball of plasma would be, and the whirlpools fan out and make that donut and connect to the other side, which creates that whole torus, or that whole donut-looking shape. Now, this action, this energy, this creation of this donut creates these whirlpools in the center. In these whirlpools, of course, that's exactly what they do to energy. They cause the energy to flow inward in both directions because of the way it spins. And, of course, it spins in both directions. And we know energy travels in both directions. So what happens when this energy is sucked into these whirlpools on opposite sides is that they implode. They collide in the center of this donut. When they collide in the center of the donut, they explode. When they explode, they go outwards the same way they come, and they make a plume of energy. And this plume of energy travels out so far, and then it is, the explosive forces are unable to overcome the gravitational forces, and then it's drawn back in, and it implodes one more time, and it repeats this process, and it goes over and over and over. Black holes, we can observe, have these plumes that come out of the top and the bottom of energy and light and everything else, the whole electromagnetic spectrum, and as well as the scalar spectrum, of course. But this happens over and over, and what happens is when this energy explodes, it creates a resonant frequency of energy. And of course, we know that a magnetic field, very much the same as what we're creating with the Earth. Okay, obviously the Earth, when you think of the magnetic field, think of the Van Allen belt and these big magnetic fields that are protecting the Earth from the solar radiation and all that. Well, it's kind of like an apple. They have the hole, or like a toroidal hole at the poles of the Earth, and that's where this energy is coming out. And these poles are probably also used as vortexes, or not vortexes, but portals. The Nazis believed that these were portals. And in a way, they are portals, but when we think of flying saucers and what have you, using these portals to actually use them as a wormhole to do time travel or something of this nature, again, what they're really doing is they're using the mass of the plasma ball, just like they would use the mass of the sun or any other star for that matter, to be as a portal. And when they say portal, it's not really a portal. What it really is is it's a coordinate that doesn't change, and it's a vector. And when you are doing this high-speed travel with this speed of light travel, it's very easy to turn into energy and use these vectors as a reference point to travel or vector to a different reference point instantaneously. And that's what wormholes really are. That's what star travel is. But back to the center of the Earth. All right, so you've got this magnetic field, and then you've got this little like nuclear explosion creating this plasma, and it's more like a fission. It's more like what the guys at Lawrence Livermore are trying to do with compressing energy and creating fission, or fusion, I guess is what they actually call it. That's exactly what it is. The magnetic field holds it in the center. That's the containment device. The magnetic field also compresses it. That's what creates the plasma. So you've got, and it throbs. It beats just like the sun. There's the resonant frequency of the energy. That's also a source for free energy. The Earth has a resonant frequency. More than likely, that resonant frequency of the Earth corresponds to the resonant frequency of this plasma ball at the center of the Earth. Okay, this is very important. This is important for understanding the nature of free energy. I mean, again, when I say the Earth is hollow, take it or leave it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to tell you to believe this without doing your own research. This is definitely something that you want to look into. But this is also very important. Okay, so now if you imagine the sun, remember the sun is going to produce a little bit of heat, so it's going to be heating these people. It's going to be delivering DNA information through its connection to source, through its scalar, through the mass transmitting the scalar information. So that tells you right there that these people may be protected from harmful radiation, but they still have access to source through this plasma ball. The temperature is going to be the same throughout. The warmth, the water is going to be warm, and there's going to be no polar regions. There's no equator. If there's any difference in the thickness of the Earth, say at the equator region, it may be a little bit thicker than it is towards the top where the holes are. That region may be like an equator, it may be slightly warmer because it's a little bit closer. But basically, you're going to have warm water. Now, the Nazis believed that there was warm water flowing. They thought there was a warm water lake, and that the water coming from this warm water lake was causing these tunnels to be formed in the ice, basically by warm water flowing to the ocean through these fissures that turned into warm water channels. And this is what the Nazis were using. Well, it turned out that this warm water lake wasn't a warm water lake. It was actually the entrance to the inside. And, of course, the water's warm because, again, there's no polar regions. There's no equator. It's all heated by this internal sun. One of the other things that's interesting that the Nazis believed is that the portals, or the Arctic regions, served as portals, and that one was an entrance and that one was an exit. And I can't remember if they thought the North Pole was the entrance or the exit, or the South Pole was. But I'm inclined to believe that water may actually flow from the northern poles into the center and then back out from the center out through the Antarctic, again, creating that warm water channels and those water flows. But again, that's all speculation. All right, let me look at the time real quick. 7:40. Okay, we got 20 minutes. All right. Anyway. Well, I got to tell you, these guys, they really did not like it when I was talking about this before. And I focused a lot on the Victor Schauberger. And Victor Schauberger is definitely important for a lot of reasons because of the toroidal effects and the movement. But the other thing that's important is to realize is that we do have this anti-gravity technology. And I'll tell you, just recently, I mean, the Americans have their own Victor Schauberger. Over in America, we have a guy named Robert Townsend Brown, and he was the American that came up with the American version of anti-gravity. It was very simple. And again, it's not really anti-gravity per se. It's more like ion propulsion, because it's basically all it is creating a big capacitor where the positive side of the capacitor is up and the bottom side of the capacitor is on the bottom. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but basically the bottom side of the capacitor puts out negative energy, and the positive side puts out a positive energy. The positive energy creates like a vacuum in the ether or the air around us. The vacuum wants to pull the item up, the disk in this chip place or instance, and the negative energy being put out of the bottom actually pushes, okay, because it's essentially everything's basically negative energy around us. So when you create more negative energy, it pushes, and when you create positive, it creates a vacuum and pulls. And that's the same concept, and that drives these UFOs, and this is a very important thing that Schauberger said, and this is a very important part of the American technology, as well as the Nazi technology, as well as the Russian technology, as well as the alien technology and everything else. So, now, let's talk a little bit about alien UFOs, or not alien UFOs, but let's talk a little bit about the Nazi UFOs. Okay. There were two societies, first of all. One was the Thule Society, Thule, Thule Society, and there was the Vril Society, VRIL. And some people say that the Vril was part of the Thule and that they were, one was larger than the other. They both served common purposes. They both basically were gathering places for metaphysical knowledge and specifically the use of psychic skill to contact higher creatures and to generate access to high technology and alien technology. And the difference between these two societies, if you look at them, a lot of people will look at the Vril and the Thule and they'll immediately say, okay, these guys are satanic or evil Nazis and this and that. But the reality is that one of them was more of a peaceful metaphysical group and promoted a spiritual embrace, kind of a service to others type of thing, very, very enlightened. And the other one was more of a Nazi group that wanted to promote the Aryan race and all of that, the enslaving the rest of the world and kind of the negative aspects of the Nazi culture at the time. But they both utilized psychics, and they both had made very, very successful contacts with other entities. And again, we can speculate on that. I suspect that they actually did make contact with Pleiadian type entities, humanoids of the service to other type. They probably also made contact with negative entities such as the Gray Guys. I'm not sure if they made contact with reptoids or not, but there's a lot of people that suggest that Hitler was certainly dealing with the Greys. But then why is that a surprise when we are dealing with them ourselves right now, a la Area 51 or a la Roswell? Anyway, a few of these things that I can tell you about the Thule Society is that they recruited these women, and one of them, and they call them, what were they? They were Vril ladies or Vril madams. Damens, yeah, that would be German. Vril Damen. And one of them was more famous one. His name was Sigun, S-I-G-U-N. And she was from Czechoslovakia, I guess it was Zagreb. Yeah, I believe that was Czechoslovakia. And she was a very talented psychic. And there are several like her. There's really 5 of them that were very well known at the time. And one of the things that was very interesting about these women is that they had very, very, very long hair. I mean, there's pictures of these women with hair down to their kneecaps, practically, long. And the reason why they did this is that they believed that the hair was a receptor for information, downloads, and psychic information. And we know today that, yeah, that's true. We know that the American Indians felt the same way, and they let their hair long because it made them better scouts. It made them in contact with the Great Spirit. And we know that when they tested these guys and when they cut their hair, they realized that they lost a lot of their skills, and they basically allowed them to grow their hair long because they were able to maintain this connection. We've also learned that there's actually magnetite in the scalp, in the layer just within our skull, and that this acts as a receptor to this information. So yes, clearly the long hair is a great way to increase your ability to receive this information. It's essentially fiber optics. It's essentially acts as an antenna. Okay, so it feeds it to the top of your head. But anyway, so supposedly these women were able to give information to these guys and help them with building these flying saucers. Okay, you guys, all right, real quick, I'm going to stop real fast because Sugar Zone 1, Sungazer it is, has asked a question, and I've seen this question, but I'm going to try to take care of it real quick. Okay, you're talking about a major announcement as promised, okay. Now, I am not, what's his name? I can't remember his name right now. Brown or whatever, the guy that was, anyway, putting out the big announcement right now, but this is the thing. We are having revelation. I mean, or what do they call it? Sean, help me out here. What is it? What are these UFO people they call when it's put out there? Huh? What's the word? Anyway, it is coming out. We have big giant UFO motherships floating around over the Ukraine. All right. We have airliners disappearing off the face of the earth. Yes, something has happened. I suspect that we are basically having disclosure. That's the word I was looking for. We are having disclosure, but it's taking place right now. It is taking place right now. The problem is that people don't pay attention. It doesn't matter if it's right in front of your face. I've heard people say this to me. I can't believe it. And they say, well, it's got to be right in front of my face before I believe it, and even if it was on CNN, it doesn't matter where you're going to see it. You're not going to believe it. It's got to walk up and slap you in the face. It's like I said the other night. You're not going to believe what's going on in the country until they shoot you in the back of the head. Then you'll believe it. Where did I learn about the scalp proceeding? Well, that's Google Indians and long hair. Truth about long hair. That's a good thing. Skype truth about long hair. Anyway, back to the. Oh gosh. All right. So you guys made me forget. All right. The thing is, though, is that I want to talk about this inner Earth thing because a lot of people, if aliens all of a sudden popped up out of nowhere, if huge motherships just popped up out of nowhere, yes, it could be Pleiadians. Yes, it could be reptoids. Yes, it could be Nazis. All these things. It could be craft that have flown out of Antarctica. It could, there's all these possibilities. So it's very important that everybody understand these key things. And you also have to understand also, again, we take the entirety of human history, whatever has happened in the last 20,000 years, to us, it seems really important. But again, it's all a blip on the ruler. It's a tiny, tiny passage of time in relationship to things that have been going on this planet for much longer than our own personal recorded history. And that's why this all is important to understand, because when we look at what we consider as important, these crises, the wars, radiation from Fukushima, things like this, all of this can be corrected by these superior forces. But again, how we perceive the movement of correction is about the same way we perceive the movement of change. So in other words, it's like, yes, our lives are, are certainly, destructible. We certainly are not intended to be here for the duration. And certainly we are susceptible to passing at any given time. But that, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not important. So, Heather material. No, don't know what the heck Heather material is. But anyway, we got 10 minutes till the end of the hour, and I've covered it pretty good, but I don't mind. We can go ahead and take some questions. So Sean, obviously you can handle that. I'm assuming that the call number is 347-688-2902. And again, I want to focus on this, I want to focus on the inner Earth. I want to focus on the Nazis and any kind of the technical aspects of what we've covered tonight. Everyone wants to hear about long hair. And also, we have a Skype. You can Skype at Freedom Screen. One word, the word freedom and the word screen, SCREEN. Skype us in. And, again, the break is only going to be about 5 minutes. Hopefully, it's only going to take 24 hours for the video to show up on YouTube, and I will certainly produce my more comprehensive video with the graphics sometime shortly thereafter. But and you guys from Sky, you guys in the chat room are certainly welcome to chime in and join me if you'd like. And I'm looking forward to the break now, so I can go run and get a drink of water to give my voice a rest for a brief second. All right, what else do I want to talk about? All right, well, I should talk about the UFOs. I definitely want to talk about the German UFOs and the various different types, and of course, when I deliver the graphics, I'll have pictures of the various different types. And the thing that's important about the different versions of the UFOs is they had different, and again, we don't really call them UFOs. They were flying craft, beam ships, is what they could do. Some were more local. Some definitely had interstellar capability. And certainly the Germans, there's captured documents showing the big craft that essentially looked like a big cigar. And, we're constantly seeing these cigar-shaped UFOs, and this is why it's important to understand that the Germans were doing this, and it's not necessarily because they invented it. It could be because this is typical of the aliens. They came up with this concept a long time ago. It could be very conducive to space travel. But we know that even the Russians have been speculating that the Germans have been flying this stuff out of their bases in Antarctica for a long time. So the Americans need to be aware of this stuff. The other big political aspect of this entire equation is that when we lost our battle at Operation High Jump, at the same time we were having this battle at Operation High Jump, we were still actively bringing German scientists into the country, et cetera, and German SS people and Gestapo people into the country, and that was the basis of the CIA. And so where do we get off? It's almost like we were very spiteful. The ones that got away, the ones that we weren't able to take under our wing, we were out to destroy. And obviously we are very unsuccessful. So when we take in consideration that the United States is basically run by a cabal which is essentially half Nazi, real life Nazi, and the other half is a Zionist type of Illuminati type of thing, it's not so hard to understand how could the Nazis have so much power. It's very simple. They not only did we bring them into our country and hand them the keys to our control, but we also got defeated by them in the very last battle of the war, and we realized that they could fly from pole to pole almost instantaneously in craft that we could not defeat. So they had de facto won. So when people say that we defeated the Nazis in the war, that's not true. It's extremely not true. We may have destroyed Germany and killed a lot of German citizens and destroyed a lot of obsolete industry, but at the same time, that was a Holocaust. That was a blood sacrifice. All the satanic people get off on that good stuff. Yes, the deluge, the Bible, the waters did come from the ground too, but that is that's not the center of the earth, though. Again, you guys, when you think about, I talked about the earth being 200 miles thick. Inner Earth is larger than our oceans. Yeah, the water supply in the inner Earth is larger than our oceans. I'm going to post some maps, okay? I'll suffice it to say real quick, when you talk about New Schwabenland, people think that New Schwabenland is actually a section of territory on the continent of Antarctica. Well, certainly, yes, there is German territory on the continent of Antarctica, but New Schwabenland is actually a very large island on the inside of the Earth, just inside of the relatively close to the entrance there. And that's not to say, remember, they're the new kids on the block. When they made access to the inner Earth, they had also made contact with the inhabitants of the inner Earth. And remember, if you go back to their business with trying to hook up to their ancient Viking heritage and all that, that's where that all connects to. So yes, there are big, huge, ancient creatures, entities, humanoids, large, tall humanoids, blonde in nature, that live within the Earth. But that's not all that lives within the Earth. There are also other entities. There's lots of different entities, and certainly they don't have the overpopulation issues that we do here on the Earth, and certainly they haven't been completely peaceful. Okay. Break time, music. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. You guys stick with us and come back. We'll take some calls. All right? Thank you.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Finder of lost children and missing persons, Monique Lassan. Surveillance civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Wednesday evening on Revolution Radio, come join our very own Eye Investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her Private Eye X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private Eye X-Files, every Wednesday from 10 to midnight Eastern, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. What is your destiny to find the golden child?
Listen in to Journeys with JP, Tuesdays on Revolution Radio at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, with a variety of guests, each giving their unique perspective on their journey through to the now. Journeys offers you, the listener, a chance to share that perspective. Join me, JP, on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, simulcast with Wolf Spirit Radio.
Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leap the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, Studio B.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
download it to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you there.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Guess what, man? You got the Nighthawk here, man, and I'm telling you news, information, and entertainment. And everything that is so awesome about Revolution Radio is right here for the taking. But, you know, Revolution Radio's hosts keep it hopping and rocking year-round, 24/7. And I bet you have a favorite host, or maybe you got many favorite hosts, right? And I'm also betting you didn't catch every show. So now you can order the Season 2013 podcast disc. It's all of your favorite host shows, each show, depending on who the host is, from 2013. For now, $30 per host, which means that you get the podcast of every broadcast in 2013 that your favorite host did, starting in February, actually, this year. And not only do you help fund the station by picking these up, but you help fund your favorite host's work. Because I split the proceeds of the sale with the host, less the shipping, of course. So this is just $30, and you get a data DVD that has every podcast for the entire year. Whose podcast are you earning? Well, all you have to do is visit freedomslips.com/season2013.htm. There's a little box. You type in your favorite host name and click pay. And when you're done, you will receive your podcast disc in 7 to 21 days, depending on the demand. Hey, man, I'm just one guy, right? Anyway, and as an added bonus, man, if you order more than 5 hosts season DVDs, I'm going to give you a free 1-year access to our daily archives. So, man, don't miss out. It's all here. It's all here. You can help us. You can help the station, help fund the station, and the host get half of it, which means you get to help fund your favorite host. I mean, how could it be better? There is no other station out here that does that. So thank you very much. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, man. You're listening to the Nighthawk, and I'm telling you what, man, this is where information never, ever sleeps, including me. Revolution Radio. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Okay. Welcome back to the second half of the Stephen D. Kelly Show, Hollow Earth Special with yours truly, Stephen D. Kelly. And now you guys, if you want to join us, of course, call in. I can continue to spew for a while here on UFOs and German UFOs particularly. But if you want to call in, join me right now. Area code 347-688-2902. Skype me in at Freedom Screen if you're already my Skype buddy. You know, I can try to add you too, or you can have Sean add you. And just for those of you that are interested that want to add me to Skype, it's my name, Stephen D. Kelly, but with a Stephen.D.Kelly, periods. You know, I was just listening to the commercial and I gotta tell you guys, you want to show me some love, take advantage of that thing that Hawk is talking about with the CD for $30 of 2013. I think I had some pretty decent shows. We had some good shows in 2013, huh, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we had some great shows in 2013, so, yeah, you know.
I got a guest list over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Well, I know we had some pretty phenomenal shows in 2013, so, anyway. So, you know, I would be pleasantly, surprised and very pleased if some of you people out there would actually buy that, and I go, wow, you know, I got a check from Nighthawk, somebody actually bought it. It's like, wow, that's so cool. So come on, you guys. I know a few people are listening to the show. Think about it. The whole 2013 on disc. That's a lot of hours. Gosh, that's like 150 hours, I think. Something like that. Anyway. All right. Let's see. Again, listener supported radio. That is a great way to support the station, though, right there. You know, and you're getting a darn CD, you know, with all that content. Jeez. So that's a great way to support the station. Otherwise, if you want to just send a check, certainly just click on the support button on the page. Again, I want to remind people how important it is to join our Facebook page. Easy enough to find, www.facebook.com/Freedom Slips. Please go there and like the page, and that's all you have to do. Press one button, and you'll get our little updates from Revolution Radio. And you'll know who I'm having on my show and who the other hosts are having on their shows, et cetera, et cetera. But you'll also get important information like the fact that our YouTube channel has changed, and we need to get you guys to go to the new YouTube channel. And again, I don't have that in front of me, so I can't read it to you, but it's a mouthful. So, but again, if you can go to our Facebook page, which is easy to get to, you can find that information right there. And I'm sure you can probably find it on our website too, but we need people to subscribe. Again, and I want people to go to my Facebook page, which is simple enough to find. Just do a search for Stephen D. Kelly. And if you want to see any of my old videos, certainly you can go to the YouTube and just do a search for Stephen D. Kelly, and there are all my old lectures and stuff are there too. Unfortunately, I don't have my old Nazi lecture. One of these days, who knows? I might have it on 8mm tape somewhere. All right. What do you think, Sean? Anybody out there want to call in and talk to us here? I'll just go start talking about about Nazi UFOs. But
we don't get any calls yet, but the lines are open.
The lines are working?
Yeah.
All right, you guys. If you want to talk about I don't know who's. I don't think anybody's got personal experience with Nazi UFOs in particular. Plenty of people out there want to say they've been abducted and what have you. But okay, Victor Schauberger. Gosh, I should get his name right. I don't know. You want to Google that for me real quick? It's Victor VIC or VIKTOR Schauberger SCHUABERGR. Again, you want to Google him, Victor Schauberger. Very important person you want to Google. Spend some time reading on him. Avoid the WikiLeaks. If you go to WikiLeaks or any of these propaganda-run sources of information, they're going to say, "Oh, this guy was a crazy Nazi and he didn't really do anything. It's all hokum and fraud, et cetera, et cetera." Of course, whoever wins the war writes the history books. He did his first test of a anti-gravity Perseid device in 1922, and it was kind of like a 3 discs spinning around in opposite directions, and I suppose they created some sort of centrifugal force that acted as an anti-gravity type thing. This was unmanned, of course, but it was just a big device. And Tesla, a lot of people say that Tesla did the same thing, and yes, it is true. Tesla did actually patent ideas, concepts for beam ship type devices, anti-gravity type devices, ion ship drive type devices. Sungazer, I don't have a major announcement. Did I say I had a major announcement? Courtney Brown, that's the guy with the major announcement, not me. But no, geez, guys, the major announcement. I mean, all right, I'm just going to go to that subject real quick. The whole purpose of this Hollow Earth business is to realize that we haven't been alone since way before we've been alive, way before we've ever taken any ability to write humans, and our whole surface world comes and goes in a constant time, often, by their comparison, and they've taken us in. Well, they've definitely taken in the Nazis. And I'll tell you, when you get down to it, and I'll put this out there real quick. Ukraine could be a big setup right now, a fraudulent thing to try to get in the USA and the Russia. Because you got to remember, the Russians and the U.S. are really allies, okay? Because the real enemy here are these Nazis, these Inner Earth New Schwabenland Nazis, and we've had this secret agreement going on for a long time. With the aim of trying to keep up with this Nazi technology, which was so far advanced. I mean, you got to understand, we're flying, piston engine driven Mustang P-51s, and they're flying advanced jets and anti-gravity device UFOs and doing space travel. I mean, my God, they went to Mars. I mean, it wasn't just Wernher von Braun and the rockets and everything else. So we were, good 50 years, at least 100 years. We don't have UFOs yet, but we're getting pretty close behind these guys. So when you take that into your understanding, this is going back to the 1940s. They're certainly beyond that now. Okay, we know that. Hell, by the time the war over there in Operation High Jump took place, the technology that the Nazis were using was superior to what we had seen during the war already. So they had the ability, because remember, they had set up these facilities down there since 42. They had building these facilities. So by then, and they had made contact, and there's a lot of speculation that there was people that were involved or entities involved other than the Nazis. I think it was Admiral Byrd himself when he made his report back to Eisenhower, I believe at the time, that he believed that the Germans were being assisted by entities from the center of the earth. So I mean, and then of course he wanted Eisenhower to respond to the failure in Antarctica with a nuclear response, and Eisenhower did not want to be responsible for going down in history as the man who, nuked Antarctica, especially when they don't even want to say why. So anyway, so that's a big deal, and I hope you guys realize what the big deal this is. I mean, just the whole idea that the Earth is hollow, just to get over that. All right, let's look at some of the mechanics again. There are certain places on Earth where there are known passageways to the other side. All right, in the ancient areas, obviously the pyramids and what have you, the Sphinx, that is one of the gates, I believe, has a passageways that goes down there. There's also in South America at some of these other pyramids, they've known to have passageways go down there. Certain of the caves systems that we know of, I think, Carlsbad Caves, things like that, they may do that. I mean, remember, it's only 200 miles, Also, man-made passageways. Area 51 is known to have an elevator that goes all the way down to the other side. Obviously, human surface dwellers that, should ever get the opportunity to do that, don't expect to come back. That's just one of those things. That's just like Area 51 in general. Just being there is practically life and death, and the deeper you get into their secretness, the less chance you have of actually getting out again. And once you get access to the inside, that's it. Your life as a surface dweller is over. So, they just can't have that information out there. So, and from what I understand, the elevator that goes the 200 miles down to the other side is actually manned by personnel from the inside, i.e. large human types, blonde human types. So, again, without going into the what's on the other side, we know there's big, tall, blonde guys. Yes, there could be reptoids. Who knows? If we want to go back, from a political standpoint, looking at our own history per se, which sometimes applies to these things because these humans tend to get assimilated into the inner society, we go back to the last epoch behind this one, because our human history right now only pertains to this epoch right now. All of the dinosaurs, all that stuff, those are multiple epochs behind our current epoch. Our last epoch, pre-deluge, and I'm saying pre-deluge, involved Atlantis and Lemuria and the civilization of Mu. And these civilizations have certain connections genetically and society-wise to ours today in respect to, we could say that the people of Atlantis were more likely we would call the Semitic people, the Jewish people. There also was other races on Atlantis that we would look at as kind of an Aborigine type, very similar to people we would consider Aborigine from Australia. And they also had Aborigine types that were light-skinned, light-haired people, but with similar features. So that was typical of the peoples that made up the society of Atlantis, and supposedly they were a service to self society. They were energy consumers and gravity consumers, very advanced, but again, service to self, very similar to ours today. The other guys were the people of Mu, I guess it was, and they were almost from, if we were to think of where they were from, they would be like the Indian subcontinent these were the guys with the Vimnas. They were primarily Aryan per se, which is difficult for a lot of people in India to get used to. But the northern parts of India were basically infiltrated by Aryan people, and that's why there's a large portion of the people there that trace their bloodline back to these Aryan roots. But it goes back very, very far. It goes back to the previous epoch. And these were the guys that were, I guess, almost, if you had to, I don't want to say Nazis, but they were the opposite side of the coin to the people of Atlantis, the energy users. So I think they were a little more spiritual, and I suspect they may have been of more of a service to others philosophy, only because when we look at these people today, associate, the people of India and whatnot, and especially with the Swamis and all that, we know that they were using the power of the brain and the power of meditation to do a lot of what the other people were doing with the power of technology, which is very reminiscent of what's exactly going on today with the people of the service to self persuasion who represent the NSA and the CIA and the people that control the world, the Illuminati types. They're very technology oriented because they don't have the skills, the psychic skills, because they are not on the service to others path. The service to others path, the opposite side of them, those the good guys, if you will, they have the ability to duplicate almost everything that the service to self types have, that they do with their technology. The service to other types can manifest the same technology or the same effect with the power of nothing more than the brain and chi and the power of energy, et cetera, et cetera. So this is very important, and is with respect to the ancient technology and the ancient societies, it's said that the Vimnas, which were the craft used to actually destroy Atlantis with some sort of an atomic bomb or something of that nature, were actually flown by the power of a Swami who essentially meditated and caused the craft to fly to wherever it was they wanted it to go. So that's a perfect example of a society utilizing the power of the spirit, metaphysics, etc., to achieve mechanical effects. All right, more about UFOs and stuff here real quick, but come on, guys, 347 if you want, 688-2902. I know it's a tough show to talk about. There's really, how you can have questions about this, but it's not like I have a guest here that's going to go, oh, I would want to say hello to you. I don't know, Sean, are you having a good time? Yeah? You learning anything?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm learning. I've been researching all this stuff. I was actually just looking up the relationship between the Indian culture and the swastika, and I realized that the swastika is an Indian sun symbol. Just the colors changed, just rotated by 45 degrees, and they took out the dots.
Yeah, right.
So, there's the culture, evident right there in the symbology.
Yeah, certainly a connection right there. Yeah, well, we know that the Nazis, that Annenberg, or whatever his society set up, one of the things that they did do, of course, aside from searching out the Ark, that's your Indiana Jones stuff right there, but they did do a lot of research into the Tibetan societies and the Aryan culture's connection to that. Yeah, Vimanas, right, Shiny Horse, thank you. But, there was several of the German people, the notable German people during that time, pre-war, publicly said how, fortunate they were and how much they did actually achieve from the accumulation of this knowledge. And obviously just getting that map that helped them secure those underwater entrances in Antarctica was probably pretty darn useful, huh? But, anyway, okay, let's see. Add me if you want. So, Laura Light Sky would like to come in. Do you have a Laura Light Sky, Sean? I'm going to bring her down so you can add her if you want. Light Sky. Or Laura Lightsaber. That's somebody from chat, I believe. Okay, well, while that person is coming in, I was going to go back to Victor Schauberger and the discs here. But we know that he did his first test. Victor Schauberger did a test in 1922, and that's pretty early. But it wasn't until about 1934 that the Thule Brill Society basically incorporated Schauberger into the program. And these guys, which is kind of weird that you would have a metaphysical group taking over this high technology stuff. But they got, there they are. They got, okay, turn your radio off. All right. Aurora, Light Sky, which is it? Hello. All right, well, unmute your mic.
I had to turn the radio off because I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
All right. Good.
Sorry about that.
You're with us now.
Yes, I've always been crazy about this kind of information. Like the Nazi Bell experiment and all of this other stuff, because it's basically, I see it as the foundation for America and our, the technology that we have.
A lot, sure.
And we're smart, but we brought them over, and
well, we brought over the Nazis, right? We know we brought over a lot of Nazis, but they weren't just the scientists. We also brought all over their secret police guys too.
Right.
The basis of our CIA. And then of course after the Roswell incident, we picked up a bunch of technology when we made a treaty with those little guys. Okay, hang on, Aurora. I just want to welcome our next caller here, 509. What's your name?
Hi there. Hey, my name's Don. How are you?
Yeah, hey Don. What's going on?
Hey, I just happened to turn on this program tonight. It was really good. Hey, I would like to know or get your take on that cigar-shaped craft that was over to Ukraine. If you already talked about it, I missed it. So.
Well, no, that's okay. It's a good subject. All right. I'm going
to hang up and then I'll listen to you on the radio.
All right. Well, I'll give you a second, if you don't mind, Aurora. I'm going to address this question. Go ahead and hang up, Don, and I'll.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer your question. Give him a second. Oh, well, there's a time delay, so he'll get the answer. Yeah. Anyway, the cigar-shaped craft. That's the thing. I call this disclosure, because yes, a big giant cigar-shaped craft has showed up over the Ukraine, and this is very, very significant for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's a great test for the humans, just whether or not they believe it. Okay, is that real? Okay, then what is it? Is it real, or is it American? Is it UFO? Is it da-da-da? And is it a holographic projection? What the heck is it? Well, again, nobody's saying Nazi. This is exactly what these Nazis. I mean, my God, we have discovered plans for these things. When we raided Germany, the factories, we saw the drawings for these cigar-shaped craft, and we've been seeing reports of these things around the southern Atlantic, and those oceans for a long time. Like St. George's Island popping up around there, Argentina. We know that. And all these companies that were making this technology, there was like 9 of these companies that were making this technology. And I want to say this real quick, because Wendell Stevens was the one that said this, and I believe Wendell Stevens because I actually dealt with this guy, and he's a very famous person when it comes to dealing with UFOs and the Billy Meyer, theory, stories and all that. But he said there was 9 of these companies that made this technology, and 8 of them just disappeared. Their employees, the contents of the factories just up and disappeared. And they know that one of them went to the Amazon, which was probably Brazil, and we know these things are flying out of Brazil. And one of them went to Norway, supposedly, and the rest of them probably went to Antarctica, down the hole to wherever, So, but anyway, so that's the thing with the craft that's above us. Is it American? Some people have said it's American. This is where all the missing trillions of dollars went into, was building this craft. Maybe. I don't know. Is it Nazi and American? Maybe. Is it American because we are Nazi? Maybe. I mean, we are Nazi, right? Practically. I mean, in other words, it's like, when did we go from Operation High Jump, where we were defeated by the Nazis in Antarctica, to being run by the Nazis in Antarctica. And I kind of believe that the country that Hitler fought, USA, pre-fall of Hitler, supposedly, 1949, was really a Zionist-controlled country, just like Hitler said it was. But now it's half Zionist, half Nazi. And I think that's because somewhere along the line, the Zionist guys probably got together with these post-war Antarctic or New Schwabenland Nazis and made a deal with them, because they probably had no choice. And the country was already being run by Nazis from, via Project Paperclip anyway. So, anyway, as far as the thing over there, I kind of think that, and this is a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Malaysian airliner was swooped up by one of these things, and they're going to do a big thing where that's going to be the disclosure, is this thing is going to drop down this airliner in the middle of Kiev or someplace appropriate with all the passengers on board. The passengers are all going to get out and do press releases and say, oh, it was wonderful, we met aliens and da-da-da, and that'll be your disclosure. Watch. Does that answer your question? All right. Well, we lost him. I'm sorry. I forgot. He hung up. Okay. Okay.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Aurora, you just said something. Jeez.
Okay.
Jeez.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I used to read all of this stuff and get wrapped up in it. My father read a lot of Nazi stuff and Hitler's, book and stuff like that. The thing that always has fascinated me is how did they keep the technology suppressed? Yes, Area 51, super secret, blah, blah, but the technology that the black government has is, I see it as at least 40 years beyond what we know now. And it still astounds me that they are able to keep it under wraps so tightly.
Well, let me tell you, Aurora, when you talk about 50 years in advance, there's something else you got to consider, and that is that, and this is coming from these guys themselves. When I was dealing with the Getty people, who I identified as Templars, i.e. Nazis, western half of the United States. It's like the Nazi side of the United States, but they basically said they were manipulating time. And, time was like a rubber yardstick, and they were stretching this thing out. Instead of the yardstick getting shorter, they were stretching the yardstick, okay? Still had the same amount of increments, only it was getting stretched out. So time is the same way. So in other words, if you look at the increase in technology that happened in the last 50, 60 years, it seems like it's incredible. It's not because, that's because of a lot of reasons. One, yeah, we're getting a lot of information technology dumped on us, more than we can handle, but also, they're squeezing our man hours. They're manipulating time by stretching out the yardstick of time. What they're doing is they're actually shortening our lives. They're making us work harder, faster, and squeezing more humans into a shorter period of time.
That's astounding.
Yeah.
That puts a lot of things in perspective then, because all of their timelines that they had so far out, they haven't reached some of them, and some of them they've gone beyond. And if it's like that and kind of maybe a back and forth issue with manipulating and changing things, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a couple things going on, and again, this was alien technology that was given to the United States, and the reason, it was given to us by the gray guys or whoever it was we made the treaty with at Roswell. But they were using this technology to change the time for two reasons, what I was told. One was to buy us time period to stall from our inevitable meeting with the bad guys. At least what we were being told were the bad guys. I think the bad guys are indeed the Palladians, and they're the guys coming here to rescue us, and it was the bad guys telling us to build weapons to fight off the good guys. Okay, that's my belief. So basically we had to catch up. We had like 50 years to get 300 years of technology crammed in. So this whole time manipulation was was trying to do that. And bear in mind, it wasn't all at once. They didn't just boop, put us ahead 50 years, but they did it slowly, incrementally. And so we're at the end of the yardstick. They can't take any more. That's what's happening.
And it really is the frog in the pot then.
Right. But the other issue is supposedly is that they were messing with the dimension that we're in. See, because if you look at everything, and this is a technical term, but it's important to understand because it applies to a lot of very important concepts, and that is the concept of the position of a phase, or the position of a sine wave. Okay, and when you take a sine wave and it starts at 0 and it goes to 1, it does a little loopy thing, and it goes from 0 to 1, right? If you take that thing and you move it away from that 0, either before the 0 or after the 0, incrementally ahead or incrementally past, you're changing the phase of that information. And this is the same concept as time travel, and this is applied by the beam ships, and this is applied by phase shifters, and this is applied by all these things. Is that if you change that phase, you change the time, you change the dimension, supposedly, of that information. So that's what time travel is. Yeah,
if you see a UFO and it's in the sky and then it's not, so it didn't necessarily have to go to another dimension. It could have just been pulled into another time frame.
Well, they can of course they have the cloaking technology to project whatever's behind them on their surface. I mean, we do that now with blankets, right? You've seen that stuff, right?
Yes.
Cloaking technology. Yeah, we have cloaking technology now. Certainly they do. But you typically, this is the thing. It's hard to say. It's all speculative. But you gotta assume that if you can imagine it, it's real. And technically that's the way the universe works. Because that is how the universe works. If you can imagine it, it's real. It's real somewhere because, just the thought, just the action of your thought makes it real in a dimension, one dimension or another. So very important to consider. But again, the point I was trying to make was that one of the reasons why they were allegedly screwing with the Earth's phase was to protect us from some bad guy race that was in a different dimension, just slightly off, that were getting closer to entering our dimension, and we were shifting ours over slightly to get further away from them. That was that's what they say. And I've heard that had something to do with the polar issues, that in order to do this, you're actually having to screw with the rotation of the Earth and stuff like that, and the poles. So crazy stuff. That's your HAARP at work and things like that.
Right, exactly. Sherry Edwards was on, I think, Major Tom and Keith Arizona show last week. Or maybe it was earlier this week, she said that the thing that changes or is harmful to human beings is not the frequency, but when the frequency pulses. So that makes sense with to me about having to mess with the North and South Pole to get it right for the time.
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, if you really want to try to get into the mechanics of the whole thing, if you're talking about the idea of using these plasmas as a portal, basically, is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes, and the plasma layer. I don't understand that where they access it at the points.
Well, see, that's the thing.
I
don't think it's
stuff.
Yeah. I don't. I don't think that's really the way it works. But I suspect. See, this is the thing. If there's a couple things I believe. In order to use a portal, a wormhole per se, if that's what people insist on believing, wormhole. But if you want to basically phase from one place to another, using this concept, you have to achieve the speed of light first. You have to mechanically get your whole vehicle up to the speed of light. Next thing you have to do is you have to be able to analyze everything on the structure, from the entire vehicle down to the humans and every detail of the human, and convert it into a sine wave. and you have to be able to convert the entire mass into energy and then reconstruct it via the information of the sine wave a moment later in another location based on the portal. So it's not really a portal per se. What it really is, I mean, and this is just my theory, is a location. Okay. So 914, hang on, be with you in just a second. When you're
a location point for exit or entry, because William Stillings had.
Well, it doesn't matter. It could
Okay.
be both. See, this is my theory. Now, Nassim Harriman said the same thing recently in one of his lectures. He was saying that the sun was being used as a Stargate per se.
Yes, that's what.
And now, what I believed, I came to the conclusion a little while ago that the scalar energy was being emitted and transmitted through these things just like portholes. Okay, so again, I may be ahead of everybody else on this thing. All right, Nassim, I think they're all close, but I think they're not getting it right. See, the whole thing about space travel, and I'm not just talking about location and geographical location in space in the universe, but I'm also talking about time. All of this is going to pertain to stars and locations of stars, because we know that at any given point of time that a star will be at a location, right? So based on that information right there, you have everything you need to navigate through space and time. Okay? All you need to know is the location of the stars at any given time. And then you have all the information you need to navigate through space and time. So you're not actually physically traveling through the star, per se. Okay?
So that's like the Stargate dial?
Yeah.
It pings off at this location?
All right. The Stargate stuff, it makes everybody's thinking in terms of a door. It's not a door. Okay? Right. It's just a dot on a map is all it is. Okay? You're using it's a known dot on a map is what it is. It's a given dot on a map. We know that at any given point in time in the universe, a given star in the universe is going to be at one particular location because we have ability to know this because we're omnipotent. Okay. Well, anyway, if you have that information, like I said, once you achieve light speed, you go warp, whatever you want to use movie terms. Once you achieve light speed, which we know from E equals MC squared is necessary in order to do this, is that you have to remove all your mass, okay? But you have to remove all your mass at the same time you've achieved light speed. And you got to do it before, you can't go past light speed and not do this or you're going to have issues. Space explorers do this. They discover this the hard way. But the idea is that when you achieve light speed and you convert your mass into energy, and remember, you're encased in a magnetic field. All these UFOs, all these things are encased in magnetic fields. So we know that. We just talked about the Earth being encased in a magnetic field. Our bodies are encased. Everything's encased in magnetic fields. Well, that's what they do with these spacecraft. They encase them in these magnetic fields, which allows them to do all these wonderful things. And, like if you see this documentary of the Russians talking about the Germans, they say, oh, yes, the magnetic fields of these craft allowed them to navigate space and time. Well, in a way they're kind of correct, but let's just say that the gravitational field was necessary because when you create a plasma, and that's essentially what we're doing when we take remember how I said the magnetic field contains the plasma contains the information, and the information is like a portal, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing. So we are our own portals per se. Okay? So what they do,
it's encased in the magnetic field.
We're already the energy, okay? All we have to do is we have to turn our mass into energy. When you see these orbs floating around? Well, that's what that is. Okay? Those are entities in an energetic form. Okay? And remember, when an entity is in an energetic form, there's no time and there's no space. Okay? It can be anywhere, practically. It could be anywhere at any given time. That's important to understand. But anyway, so that's what happens with the spaceship. The spaceship basically turns into an orb for a moment, and at that point, it's not really going to matter how close it gets to the sun, and remember, it's traveling at light speed at this point, so all it's got to do is get kind of close to the thing. I mean, it doesn't have to actually use the sun. It just has to use the sun's basic coordinates, aim for it, get close, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be setting it for a different sun in a different coordinate in a different time, and you're going to be slowing down from light speed and converting from energy back into mass at this new location. And that's how it's done. And it only takes 40 minutes to get up to light speed, so it tells you it only takes, 80 minutes to travel anywhere in the universe.
That's
pretty much. Yeah. That's why these spaceships don't have to be that big. You don't have to have a big potty and a sleeping chambers and a kitchen, because it only takes them 40 minutes to get here and there. Actually, I'm sorry, 80 minutes. Probably, it might take a little bit. We'll give them a little bit of time to mess around, drive around here and there and sightsee, but we'll assume the heavy driving only takes 80 minutes. So.
That's amazing.
Okay, 914. How are you doing? Do we talk yet?
Very good. How you doing, Steve?
Good. What's going on?
Okay, great show. And I actually love when you have no guests. I can listen to you talk for hours, man. So much information.
Right,
I really enjoy it.
That's why I like to do it.
A couple of quick questions. I always wondered, they always said Hitler had all this UFO technology. If that was the case, how come he never used it in the war? And like they say, Germany lost, but the Nazis moved on.
I'll tell you why. All right. That's a good question. I'll tell you. That's a good question. Good answer. I got a good answer for you. You're going to like this. Okay. Well, first of all, what did I say? They weren't, they didn't, we didn't get to talking about the different types of these things that they'd made. They got the Vril, they made their first test in 22, and they made their first, it wasn't 1939 before they tested the first test on the first disc. They actually flew a disc. But it wasn't 1942 that they actually fielded a disc, and then all it could do is really look around and kind of scout, And the real reason why these things weren't really good for weapons, and remember, they only built a few of them. They weren't able, because it was still constantly being tested. Guns and missiles and electronic devices and things like this could not operate in the magnetic field that was encasing the device. Okay, so in other words, we know that these things were using a magnetic field to basically control the flow of the ions that allowed them to float around and fly back and forth. And inside of that type of a environment, a conventional weapon that relies on some electronic thing or a mechanical, chemical process, like a gun or a rocket, isn't going to work. It's because it's either going to blow up, or not work properly, or misfire, something like this. And so obviously the only thing that works in a situation like that is a light weapon, because we know that light is impervious to the magnetic field and it can pass through it. So it wasn't until they created laser weapons that they were able to use these platforms good for weapons. So by that time, and like I said, it was 1942 when they realized that they had, it was another 3 years before the war was over, but even by 1942, they knew they had to move that stuff away. They knew it was the future, and they, so you could pretty much say that's when they gave up. Because if they knew they were going to win, they wouldn't have moved that stuff away, right? Mm-hmm. So, anyway, hope that answers your question.
Okay, can I ask you another question?
Yes.
Okay, they always talk about Hitler was into the occult and had alien technology. Did you ever hear of anything to do with Hitler and reptilians?
That's a good question. Personally, I don't at all. I know I heard about him dealing with the little gray guys, and I know that he was working very closely with Tibetan monks and the Tibetan Book of the Dead and channeling. And I suspect when he was channeling, I don't think he was dealing with reptoids. But, this is the thing about reptoids is that in a lot of ways they look like humans. And for that matter, they can look like anything they want. You know that, right? They can look like us. Okay, so it's hard. People ask me, have you dealt with aliens? I'm thinking, how would I even know? I know I dealt with a few people that were a little kind of weird, and you kind of wonder, but that's the thing. They can look like whatever they want.
Right. Okay, one last question, if you don't mind. Did you ever hear of Andrew Basiago? I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about his claims? The jump room, we went to Mars, and actually even said Obama was someone he met in the program going to Mars. Have you heard about that?
All right. Well, okay, I have to be honest with you. I do my best to not say anything negative about any of my fellow, whatever you want to call them, people out there. But at the same time, it's really hard for me. If you were to ask me who I thought was the best one or had the most respect for, I would probably could only pick a dead one, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to go into the little nitty gritty about how I feel about him, but from my own, feeling, I believe the jump rooms do exist. Whether or not he did this or not, I'm inclined to believe that he did. The whole issue with Obama and all that, I'm inclined to believe that Obama did. But Andrew also feels that Obama and Obama's mama were good people, and that's definitely a big red flag for me. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I can't believe all the information that's on the web about Obama, like Larry Sinclair. I don't want to get into this, but you've heard of Larry Sinclair, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, but with respect to Basiago and Obama and that whole jump room business, I think if we stick with that, that's kind of close to what we're talking about now. But I mean, all right. For instance, the Nazi bases and what have you. Okay, and you talk about the jump rooms and all that. Okay, we are talking about the same thing. Okay, when we were talking about the NSA and all that, we know at least half of that, all of that stuff is Nazi. We know at least half of all of that stuff is the same people that have these underground bases and what have you. So for what I understand, they do have a base on Mars. They probably also have underground bases on Mars. They also have them on the moon. And when I say underground bases, it could be on the inside also, not just on the interior. So it's really hard to say. And I'll tell you the other thing is that these Pleiadians are supposedly coming here and having the big fight right now with these Illuminati types. Allegedly they've already destroyed the base that was on Mars. So now whether or not that device, it could be that they've been destroyed. I don't know. We talk about their craft being destroyed. Who knows? But I think that there's a good possibility that the Mars base has been pretty screwed up because of action. And so, yeah, disclosure's coming for sure. I definitely think disclosure's coming. Whether or not people pay any attention, I don't know. I think they're still going to go to work and buy insurance and act like nothing's changed,
Right. Okay, one last question, if you don't mind. Remember a couple of years ago they claimed that they were mining for water on the moon, and therefore they blew something up, or there was a slight explosion. That didn't really get a lot of media play. What's your take on what they were doing?
Well, okay, the purpose of the water experiment and the explosion was so that they could drive dust, they could make a crater and blow a ton of junk up into the atmosphere, and then do a spectral analysis of it and see how much water was in the cloud. Okay, that was the official reason for it, and that is a logical reason. But I think you're correct in assuming that there's some ulterior motives, because there's always ulterior motives and there's always multiple agendas. They don't do anything unless they're doing three things at once. Trust me.
Right.
Yeah.
One last thing, the Mona Lisa alien on the moon. Have you seen those videos?
Mona Lisa alien? No, I haven't. I probably have. Do me a favor, Sean. Can you add Keith, Arizona, to the call? That's like a rock structure?
No, they found a long spaceship in the crater of the moon, and
right.
a bunch of videos on it. And they found two aliens. They took the one full body back, and they cut off the head of the other, and it looks like a female, looks Asian a little. You remember seeing those videos?
Oh. Well, let me just say that there's a good reason why they don't point the space telescope at the moon. I think a lot of stuff would be very obvious. And yes, I think they do have a lot of things built in the craters. And I suspect that just like the Earth being hollow, I suspect that the moon may be hollow. But there's all sorts of other crazy things. The moon may be completely alien to our solar system. It could have actually been brought here and stuck in close vicinity to our planet. There's all sorts of crazy possibilities of what the moon is. It could be, it's actually way more ancient than the Earth. So, and I know that when they do these explosions, it kind of pings, it rings like it's hollow.
Right, I've heard that too. It's like the more you know, the more you don't know. There's just so much to this stuff. All right, great show like always, Steve. Have a great.
All right, okay. All right, well, anybody else wants to join us, again, 347-688-2902. We're only down to 8 minutes anyway. All right, well, let me look and see if there's anything really important here that I want to get out real quick. Things to look up, of course, Thule, Thule, Vril, Vril. Keith is still trying to join us. Haunebu, that's another one, Haunebu. That's another very important Nazi UFO, and again, I'm going to be posting photos on this. Nassim Harriman, look into his work. Hi, Keith, you with us?
Yes, I am.
How you doing? Only got a couple of minutes. Go for it.
I know. I'll be really quick. I just wanted to tell you this is a fantastic show. I've been really enjoying it. These are the kind of discussions and ideas I just love talking about and, examining the evidence. And I wanted to tell you, if you're interested in coming on Ground Control, we've got JP with us, who's a fellow host on the station. Mm-hmm. And I think he would be agreeable if you want to continue.
Well, that's up to you guys. I certainly don't mind. I mean, at this point, I think I covered the material pretty good, so it's pretty much, if you want to go into question mode, that'll work a little bit better. But I hope you guys, listeners included, enjoyed the information. And it's almost like it's just so intense and deep, and you can only present so much without getting kind of bogged down in it all. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, there's a lot, and there's certainly a lot of layers to the onion, and it can get a little overwhelming sometimes, but, you take it one step at a time, and I thought you presented it extraordinarily well.
Yeah, well, as long as you keep an open mind, assume everything is fact, and you just kind of file it away and then use it as a kind of a reference when other things happen, it sort of helps. So
I think the biggest positive about it is it goes against what the official establishment line is.
Well, for sure. It certainly goes against the propaganda in every respect, and certainly this is information that they don't want people to be aware of. I mean, on many different levels, huh?
There's definitely something happening. There are underground cities, whether it is the shape you described, certainly go back to Journey to the Center of the Earth. I don't know. I'm certain there are underground cities, though.
Yeah, yep. No doubt. Oh, well, underground cities, there's certainly underground cities. I mean, we know that, the Getty, et cetera, but then when the whole concept of going down 200 miles and getting into a whole other world with remember, we're talking constant daylight, constant temperature. Can you imagine? That's got to be utopia, right? No weather changes, right? My God.
It reminds me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No jets. I mean, think about it. There's no jets flying around in a inner world like that. You're certainly not flying jets. You can't fly from point A to point B if you have a central sun, right? Makes sense, huh? I'll bet they do a lot of surface travel.
Yeah, and but you could fly around it.
Well, I suppose, but I'm guessing that they probably don't get too up off of the surface in there, because
they probably don't need to.
Yeah, they probably don't need to. They probably can just zip around and who knows what they've got. But anyway, I'm going to post a bunch of maps and stuff on my Facebook page, and certainly if you want to go to my Facebook page and look at my maps for Inner Earth, just go to my albums and look for Inner Earth on the albums, and that's got a lot of stuff. And I'm going to again put that on the video for this broadcast. But now we're down to a couple minutes. 1 minute remaining. Okay, listen, I want to thank you guys that called in. I want to thank all the listeners. I hope you guys enjoy this. Remember, it was inspired. I did this only because I think everybody needs to hear this information in light of the things that are going on in Ukraine and what have you. So the lesson here is to be an observer, taking all the information and have an open mind. Good night, guys. Join us again next week. Adios.